Against all higher truth, their stuff rebels. Only to titan force their will lies prone. Inordinate their hold on human hearts. In all our nature's turns, they intervene. Insignificant architects of low-built lives and engineers of interest and desire, out of crude earthiness and muddy thrills and coarse reactions of material nerve, they build our huddled structures of self-will and the ill-lighted mansions of our thought, or with the ego's factories and marts surround the beautiful temple of the soul. Artists minute of the hues of littleness, they set the mosaic of our comedy, or plan the trivial tragedy of our days. Arrange the deed, combine the circumstance, and the fantasia of the mood's costume. These unwise prompters of man's ignorant heart and tutors of his stumbling speech and will, movers of petty wraths and lusts and hates and changeful thoughts and shallow emotion starts, these slight illusion makers with their masks, painters of the decor of a dull-hued stage, and nimble scene shifters of the human play, ever are busy with this ill-lit scene. Ourselves, incapable to build our fate, only as actors speak and strut our parts until the piece is done and we pass off into a brighter time and subtler space. Thus they inflict their little pygmy law and curb the mounting slow uprise of man. Then his too scanty walk with death they close. You start, Dana.
Against all higher truth, their struck rebels. Only to titan force, their will lies prone. Inordinate their hold on human hearts. In all our nature's turns, they intervene.
So that just by their very substance, they rebel against higher truth. They're clinging to the littleness and the falsehood. The only thing that they are willing to obey is force, titan force, power. So Mother and Sri Aurobindo, they could control these beings. But to us, they have an inordinate hold, completely out of proportion to their importance. They have such a strong hold on our human hearts, and they intervene, they interfere in all our nature's turns. They're playing with us all the time. Alice.
Insignificant architects of low-built lives and engineers of interest and desire, out of crude earthiness, muddy thrills, and coarse reactions of material nerve, they build our huddled structures of self-will and the ill-lighted mansions of our thought, or with the ego's factories and marts surround the beautiful temple of the soul.
Yes. So they're builders. They're building up structures in our nature. They are insignificant in a way. They are just small, unimportant little beings. But they have this out of proportion. Inordinate means out of proportion. This hold on our hearts. And they interfere in all our nature's turns. So, and it's as if they are building up structures in us. They are insignificant architects of low-built lives. They're building lives like building huts. Engineers of interest and desire. They make us want things. They make us want to do things that will benefit us. So out of our earthiness, our love for muddy thrills, like pigs and hippopotamuses rolling in the mud, coarse reactions of material nerve, the most material part of our bodies. They build our huddled structures of self-will. The little huts and palaces we'd like to build for ourselves. The ill-lighted mansions of our thought. Mansions are bigger buildings, no? But I seem to remember once visiting some mansions in Kolkata. They were very ill-lighted. It was almost dark in the stairways. Everything was very dark. No? There are many rooms in them. Or with the ego's factories and marts, marketplaces, factories and marketplaces, which are connected with our desires of the ego again. No? They surround the beautiful temple of the soul. At our center, there's this beautiful temple of the soul, but these beings, they surround it with all kinds of ugly, low, muddy structures. Subhu, you'll read?
Artists minute of the hues of littleness, they seek the mosaic of our county, and plan the trivial tragedy of our days, arrange the deed, contain the circumstance in the fantasy of the mood's costume.
Yes. So they are artists in their way, but in a very small way, of unimportant things. But they go into detail. They are artists minute of the hues, of the colors, of littleness. Not great, noble creations, but small, muddy ones. He says they set the mosaic of our comedy. A comedy is a kind of drama which makes you laugh in the end. A mosaic It's a pattern made with small pieces of stone, of colored stone, put together to make a picture. So that's what they're doing. They're putting together these little pieces to make up some kind of picture, which is about the littleness of our lives. Or they plan the tragedy of our days, but it's not a real noble tragedy, it's a trivial tragedy. It's tragic because it's so small. But they do it all very carefully. They arrange the deed, combine the circumstances so that everything fits to happen the way they want. And they even prepare costumes for this drama, whether it's a tragedy or a comedy. They costume the moods of this drama according to their fantasy, the fantasia of the mood's costume. Kamala.
These unwise counters of one's ignoring heart and tutors of his strongest temper, moves of pity, grabs, and lost candles, and changeful thoughts and shallow emotions rise. This light illusion is painters of the texture of our dull hued street, and evil seeing shifters of vision faith. Ever are disease with this ill seen.
Yes. So he's using the imagery of the theatre. He spoke of them as puppeteers. They're playing with us. We are their puppets. And so they have to make the scenery, they have to do and the costumes and arrange everything. He says they are unwise prompters. A prompter is somebody who makes suggestions to you. Of course, in the theatre, we have a prompter who's there beneath the stage in case the actors forget what they're supposed to be saying or doing. He has to prompt them. But in other ways, these beings prompt us. They make suggestions to us. Do this, do that. And they are unwise prompters. They prompt our ignorant hearts. Oh, that would be a good thing to do. That would be a nice thing to do. No? They are tutors. They teach our speech, and they teach our will, our stumbling speech. We're not very good at speaking correctly, and our will is also stumbling. They prompt us, they move us to petty wraths. They're very good at poking us and making us upset and irritated and angry about small nothings, no? Movers of petty wraths and lusts and hates. They like to provoke us to all these low emotions. And they prompt us to changeful thoughts. We think one thing one day, and the next day we've got a different opinion or a different idea. Changeful thoughts. And shallow emotion starts. Feelings, I want this, I love this, and then again we change our mind. It's because they're always prompting us. He calls them illusion makers. They're not showing us reality. They are showing us things that are unreal. Illusion makers. And they hide behind masks. They are painters, they do this, paint the scenery, paint the decor of their stage where they play out their dramas. But this stage also, there's very little light there. The ill-lit scene. So there they are, always arranging things for our lives. Alexander, have you got the place? Line 451.
Ourselves incapable to yield our fate. Only as actors speak and strut our parts until the piece is done and we pass off into a brighter time and subtler space. Thus they inflict the little pygmy law and curb the mounting, slow uprise of man. Then he is to scanty walk with deathly close.
Yes. So we ourselves, we can't build up our fate and organize it. Of course we could, but with this little mind, this little life mind that's being talked about now, we're not able to build up a beautiful fate for ourselves. We're only actors. They put us there on the stage only as actors. We speak, we strut about, play our parts, until the drama, this little drama of our life, is done, till it's over. And then we leave the stage. We pass off. Fortunately, we may pass off into a brighter time and a subtler space. But in this way, these, he calls it a masked, ironic troupe, these puppeteers who are manipulating us. Thus, they inflict their little pygmy law, their law of littleness, and they curb, they hold back the mounting, slow uprise of man. They can't hold us back completely. The evolution is going on, but they make it happen. They put as many obstacles in the way as possible. They curb, they hold it back, this slow mounting up of man. And when they feel like it, they close our walk. Say, now, end. Then his too scanty walk. We actually don't have much time to live. When they decide it's enough, they close it. Joel, would you read next?
This is the ephemeral creature's daily life. As long as the human animal is Lord, and the dense nether nature screams to soul, as long as the intellect's outward gazing sight serves earthy interest and creature joys, an incurable littleness pursues his days.
Thank you. So, this is the daily life of all of us, ephemeral creatures. We don't last long if we think about the history of the universe, no? The ephemeral creature, this little dramas organized by these puppeteers, these unwise prompters, that's our daily life. As long as the human animal is Lord, we may have human appearance, human bodies, but if we don't have a truly human consciousness, then we are ruled by the animal part of ourselves. The soul is screened by this dense, this thick lower nature. As long as intellect's outward gazing sight, our intellect has the capacity to look outside ourselves, beyond ourselves. But if we use it only to serve our own lower interests and our lower lives, the smaller parts of ourselves, as long as it's like that, an incurable littleness pursues our days. It's incurable. The only cure comes if the soul takes charge, if we'd stop listening to these unwise prompters. Sudarshan, you read, please.
𝒊𝒍𝒍 consciousness was born on earth. Life is the same in effect, age and manner. Its stuff unchanged, its way the common root. If new design, if richer details grow, and thought is added, and more tangled care, if little by little it builds a brighter faith, till even in man, the plot is mean and poor.
Yes, we'll stop there. So ever since consciousness was born on earth, as with the beginning of life, and particularly the life mind, the life consciousness, which is he's speaking about here, ever since that emerged on earth, life is the same. The urges are the same in insect, ape, and man. The substance is unchanged, and we're all following the common route. There's one particular path we all follow. He says that in fact, of course, new designs do appear, richer details appear, thought develops, and then we start worrying, then we have more tangled cares, complications bother us. If little by little our life does wear a little bit brighter face, still, even in man, who is the crown of the animal creation, even in man, the plot of the drama is mean and pure, nothing vast and noble and generous. Bhuvana.
A gross content prolongs his fallen state. His small successes or failures of the soul. His little pleasures punctuate frequent griefs. Hardship and toil are the heavy price he paid for the right to live, and his last wages death.
Yes, that's our last wages. A gross content, if we are just satisfied, that prolongs our fallen state. We don't progress if we are just contented with that littleness. So our small successes that we're so proud of, they are failures for the soul. It means we failed to make some greater kind of progress. As little pleasures, we may have little, we surely do have little pleasures, but they punctuate, they come in between many sad things, unhappy things. Hardship and toil are the heavy price all human beings have to pay for the right to live. and our last wages, death. It's a quotation from the Bible. Gopal.
In inertia, some words in one's hand. A sleep that imitates death is repose. A funny splendor of creative force is made his call to fragile human works, which yet outlast their brief creator's breath. He dreams sometimes of the revenge of the gods and sees the Dionysian gesture pass, a leonine greatness that would hear his soul, in through his failing limbs and fainting heart, the sweet and joyful mighty madness spirit.
Just read the next two lines.
The trivial amusement stimulate and list, the energy given to him to grow and be.
This is so painful, isn't it? So we feel the need to rest. We feel the need to rest often. An inertia that sinks towards inconscience, an unconscious state, and a sleep that imitates death. That's the repose for human beings. Even we refer to sleep as death's brother. But there is some kind of creative force acts through us, but it's puny. It's not very strong. A puny splendor of creative force is made his spur. There's something that drives us to achieve things, to fragile human works. They don't last long. They may be not very important, but still it is some kind of creativity. And those fragile human works often last longer than we do. We may die before our achievements do. So the human being sometimes dreams of the revels of the gods, the higher enjoyments, and sees the Dionysian gesture pass. Sri Aurobindo is referring to the ancient Greek divinity Dionysus, who was worshipped in procession by people singing and dancing. And there are some interesting paintings from the Renaissance time of human art of that procession of Dionysus and his followers, and what a marvelous time they are having, and powerful. They have animals with them, leopards and lions, and so maybe there's something in us which dreams about such revels. He says that's a leonine greatness, a lion-like greatness, so powerful that if it actually, that Dionysian feelings, if they would actually pass through our physical bodies, they would tear us to pieces, tear his soul even, if through his failing limbs and fainting heart that sweet and joyful mighty madness swept. It's not for human beings, or at least not for the lower levels of our life being. So instead of that leonine gesture and greatness, instead, trivial amusements. That's what keeps us going. Trivial amusements stimulate and waste the energy that is given to us, to Him, to grow and be. We get a ration of energy to make the most of, but very often we waste it on trivial amusements. Our little hour is spent in little things. Would you like to read?
A brief companionship with many jars, a little love and jealousy and hate, a touch of friendship knit in different clouds. Draw his heart plan on life's diminutive map. If something great awakes to freight his pitch, to reveal his zenith tension of delight. His thought to eternize his ephemeral soar. Art's brilliant gleam is a pastime for his eyes. A thrill that smites the nerve, his music's spell.
That the full stop comes there. Yeah. So these are the things that lighten up our lives. A brief companionship, but even then there are many clashes. We say the door is ajar when it's swinging and banging, ajar. It is a jarring noise and it's a clash of some kind. A little love and jealousy and hate. A touch of friendship in the midst of crowds of people we are indifferent about. These are the things that draw the plan of our heart on life's diminutive map, tiny little map. If something great wakes up in us, we're not strong enough. Our pitch is too frail, too weak to be able to really express the heights of that delight. Its zenith is the highest point, that tension of delight. We're just not strong enough to bear that. Our thought is not strong enough to make that soaring vision last a little longer. It remains ephemeral. What we have, maybe the highest things we have, our creativity, art's brilliant gleam. It's a pastime for our eyes. And music is a thrill striking the nerves. Maybe that's one of the highest forms of delight that we have. You read?
Amidst his harassed toil and welter of cares, stressed by the labor of his crowding thoughts, he draws sometimes around his aching brow nature's calm, mighty hands to heal his life pain. He is saved by her silence from his lack of self. In her tranquil beauty is his purest bliss.
Yes. So there's art, there's music. One of the things that perhaps we value most is nature's calm, mighty hands. The life of toil in the cities and all these things. We like to escape, to feel the touch of nature's calm, mighty hands that gives us some sense of healing of our life pain. The silence of nature saves us from his rack of self. A rack is an instrument of torture. It's as if we are all the time torturing ourselves. The silence of nature can save us from that for a short time. what we feel in nature's tranquil beauty, that may be the purest bliss that we feel. We can read a little bit further. A new life dawns. He looks out from vistas wide. The Spirit's breath moves him, but soon retires. His strength was not made to hold that puissant guest. All dulls down to convention and routine, or a fierce excitement brings him vivid joys. His days are tinged with the red hue of strife and lust's hot glare and passion's crimson stain. Battle and murder are his tribal gain. Time has he none to turn his eyes within and look for his lost self and his dead soul. So perhaps we'll stop there for today. It's not a very happy picture that he paints of our life, no? Against all higher truth, their stuff rebels. Only to tighten force their will lies prone. Inordinate their hold on human hearts. In all our nature's turns they intervene. Insignificant architects of low-built lives, and engineers of interest and desire, out of crude earthiness and muddy thrills and coarse reactions of material nerve, they build our huddled structures of self-will and the ill-lighted mansions of our thought, or with the ego's factories and marts surround the beautiful temple of the soul. Artists minute of the hues of littleness, they set the mosaic of our comedy, or plan the trivial tragedy of our days. Arrange the deed, combine the circumstance, and the fantasia of the mood's costume. These unwise prompters of man's ignorant heart, and tutors of his stumbling speech and will, movers of petty wraths and lusts and hates, and changeful thoughts and shallow emotions starts. These slight illusion makers with their masks, painters of the decor of a dull-hued stage, and nimble scene-shifters of the human play, ever are busy with this ill-lit scene. Ourselves, incapable to build our fate, only as actors speak and strut our parts, until the piece is done and we pass off into a brighter time and subtler space. Thus they inflict their little pygmy law and curb the mounting slow uprise of man. Then his too scanty walk with death they close. This is the ephemeral creature's daily life. As long as the human animal is lord, and a dense nether nature screens the soul, as long as intellect's outward-gazing sight serves earthy interest and creature joys, an incurable littleness pursues his days. Ever since consciousness was born on earth, life is the same in insect, ape, and man, its stuff unchanged, its way the common root. If new designs, if richer details grow, and thought is added, and more tangled cares, if little by little it wears a brighter face, still even in man the plot is mean and poor. A gross content prolongs his fallen state. His small successes are failures of the soul. His little pleasures punctuate frequent griefs. Hardship and toil are the heavy price he pays for the right to live, and his last wages death. An inertia sunk towards inconscience, a sleep that imitates death is his repose. A puny splendor of creative force is made his spur to fragile human works, which yet outlast their brief creator's breath. He dreams sometimes of the revels of the gods, and sees the Dionysian gesture pass, a leonine greatness that would tear his soul if through his failing limbs and fainting heart the sweet and joyful mighty madness swept. Trivial amusements stimulate and waste the energy given to him to grow and be. His little hour is spent in little things. A brief companionship with many jars, a little love and jealousy and hate, a touch touch of friendship mid indifferent crowds, draw his heart plan on life's diminutive map. If something great awakes, too frail his pitch to reveal its zenith tension of delight, his thought to eternize its ephemeral soar. Art's brilliant gleam is a pastime for his eyes, a thrill that smites the nerves is music's spell. Amidst his harassed toil and welter of cares, pressed by the labour of his crowding thoughts, he draws sometimes around his aching brow nature's calm, mighty hands to heal his life pain. He is saved by her silence from his rack of self. In her tranquil beauty is his purest bliss.